And we discussed in the last class what is HANA Studio and what is the purpose of this HANA Studio and how to add the HANA instance in the HANA Studio. These details we discussed in the last class. And once we add the HANA instance, we would see mainly four folders within the HANA instance in the HANA Studio, right? So one is a catalog, other one is a content, security, and provisioning. So why we are discussing this first? Because to replicate the data into HANA, you should know where these tables are residing and where the data is storing. So what is the node which is holding all these tables? This information you should know. That's the reason why first we are discussing this part. HANA instance, once you add the HANA instance in HANA Studio, you would see mainly four nodes. One is a catalog, content, security, and provisioning. So catalog is a collection of schemas, right? So let me show you once again today. So these are the HANA instances that we have logged in the last class. So as soon as you log on to the HANA Studio, there is an area called Systems area where you need to add the system. What system? SAP HANA, by providing the respective host name and instance number and then username password. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to connect to the HANA database which is installed in the Linux environment. That's it. So we discussed what is catalog. Only catalog we discussed. Catalog is a collection of schemas. Catalog is a collection of schemas. And the schema in turn what it contains? A schema contains collection of related database objects like tables, procedures, figures, views, synonyms, sequences like this. But majorly we would be using only the tables and procedures. Only we would be discussing about procedures and tables because these other things we won't be using in HANA. So very rarely, very rare situations we would be creating triggers as triggers and other things. Views we already create in the content folder that we would discuss in the subsequent classes. So for the time being, just remember one thing, like catalog is a collection of schemas and the schema is a collection of related HANA tables, related database objects, you can say. Now when you talk about the schema, in which situations you will create a schema and how you would be creating the schema depending on the business requirement. Let's say, as discussed in the last class, we have three different systems. One is ECC system, non-SAP system, and flat files data. Now you are replicating all the data from these different sources into HANA. In that case, I would be creating three different schemas, one for the ECC system, one for the non-SAP system, and another one for the flat files. All the tables which are related to the ECC system would be placed under the ECC schema. Similarly, all the related tables which belongs to the non-SAP system, be it Oracle apps or anything, so would any legacy system also, non-SAP system, would be placed under the non-SAP schema. So here you are creating the schema to logically segregate your table. That's it. You are creating the schema to logically segregate your tables. Want to keep all my ECC related tables under one schema. I want to keep all my non-SAP tables under one schema. I want to keep all my flat files related tables under one schema. This is my requirement. So I created three flat files. Some situations you may have to create different schemas for different modules. It is possible. It all depends. Like there is no restriction like you should create the schemas for this only. No, there is no restriction as such. You can create schema according to your requirement. This is another kind of way that we create schemas in the system HANA database. So you have only one source, but you created multiple schemas, so depending on the module wise. So for CRM modules, SAM module and MMSD different modules, I'm creating a separate schema so that all the related tables of MM would be placed under the MM schema. All the related tables of SEM or CRM would be placed under the respective schemas in the HANA database. This is one kind of approach. There is no stoppage here that you should create the schema for this way only. No, there is no such something like that. You can create the schema according to your requirement. So then we started yesterday with the data provisioning. So what exactly the data provisioning means? It's a mechanism. It's a mechanism to move the data from the source system to the target system. It's a mechanism to move the data from the source system to the target system. Here the source system could be anything, but the target system is HANA. Now we have mainly three kinds of ways that we can load the data into HANA majorly. One is the VODS, the other one is the SLT, and using flat file loading also you can load the data into HANA. So yesterday we started off with the VODS. Some basic details we discussed in the VODS. So what is the VODS? We call it as SAP DS now because it was a product of business objects, which is a separate organization. It was not part of SAP actually. SAP acquired these business objects in 2008 around. So now it became the part of product of SAP. Now that's why we are calling it as the SAP DS now. So this SAP Data Services is a ETL tool, which is majorly used by the many of the clients of SAP. So this is a majorly used ETL tool. So which is used to replicate the data from any kind of source system, any kind. So be it SAP source system, be it a non-SAP source system, be it a flat files, be it XML files, be it CSV files or any kind of files. So even it is possible to load the data from the Hadoop HDFS file system. So that is the advantage of VODS. The scope is very high with the VODS. That's why many of the customers are using this product to replicate the data into the target system. At the same time, this VODS is capable of performing the complex calculations or complex transformations to load the data into HANA. Before we load the data into HANA, we can perform the complex calculations in VODS. Then that is another flavor of VODS. Like if you want to perform some complex calculations, why to put burden on HANA if I can do that while transferring the data into HANA? So VODS can help in that way. So if you want to filter some data, let's say your table contains, your source table contains almost 2 billion records. In those 2 billion records, you don't want all those 2 billion records. You just want the data related to a particular customer, or you want to see the data related to the particular sales orders, or you need to read the particular related to some particular production order. You want to filter it out before we load the data to the HANA. So where it is possible in the VODS itself, we can filter out the data. Not only filter, there are other calculations part, like you have one field and you want to merge this field to some other field. Let's say you have a first name and last name field, but you don't have a field called full name. Now, instead of loading the data of first name and last name field, you want to load the data of the full name field. So in that case also you can generate the fields dynamically when you are transferring the data to the HANA. So these are some few minimal calculations, but the VODS people do a lot of calculations if required according to the business requirement. Yeah. Here we have mainly two types of data flows. to replicate the data from source system to the target system. One is a normal data flow, other one is a ABAP data flow. Practically, we will see how to do a normal data flow and how to do a ABAP data flow. Okay, so if you observe when you are in this picture, what I mentioned here is the source system and target system I mentioned. BODS doesn't know what is your source and what is your target, right? You need to establish the connection between your BODS and HANA and the BODS and source system, right? So I don't know. I'm a BODS guy. I have a BODS system. Someone says, manager says, okay, go and get the data from the source system. So he said the source system is XYZ. How would I know what is the source system XYZ? What are the details of that XYZ system? Yes, for that reason, we would be creating a data store in the BODS which actually contains the information about the source system, and similarly we would be creating another data store for the target system which contains the information about the target system. Okay, at the same time, when you are replicating the metadata from the source or target, these metadata information can be replicated first into the data store and then replicated to the target system once you execute the job. So we would be creating the jobs to replicate the tables from the source system to the target system. Let's say in this picture I mentioned the Mara table. My requirement is to replicate this Mara table into the HANA system. So automatically it will not be done, right? So I need to create a job. I need to create a job so that when I execute this job, a process will be triggered to import the metadata of this Mara table into this BODS environment under the data store, and then it will translate that metadata into the data into the target system, right? So these are the steps that we need to follow to create a job in the BODS environment. So yesterday we listed out almost 12 steps. So creating a data store for the source system, replicate the metadata from the source system, and then create a data store for the target system. And the fourth step is optional. I will explain this in more detail when we start this practical thing here now. And the create a project, create a batch of, creating a workflow within the batch of, and creating a data flow within the workflow. And we need to specify what is my source and what is my target in the data flow, and save the job, execute the job, preview the table and data in HANA. So to preview the table in HANA or to replicate the tables to HANA, what is required in HANA? Prior we replicate the tables to HANA. What is required? A schema should be created in target system. That is the main requirement. So here the note. What is the note? Make sure respective schema is already available in HANA. Respective schema is already available in HANA. So what schema? So we already created one schema. What schema we created? It was batch me. A schema was created to replicate. So this is an empty schema which doesn't contain any tables. We are going to replicate the tables into this schema. So it's very simple to create the schema. Those who missed in the last class, just select the system here. You need to select the system. On top you will see a button called SQL console. Click on it. Now you can type create schema. This is the statement to create the schema in the SQL. Create schema. That's why I told in the demo. So you should know the basic details about the SQL to learn this technology. Create schema, the schema name. So create schema name is batch me. So when I execute this, it will throw error. Sorry, batch. So why it is throwing error? Cannot use a duplicate schema name because we already created in the yesterday class. Batch schema was already created. Batch may schema was already created. That's why it is throwing error. You don't need to worry. If it is some other name, like if I'm giving some other name, so it will execute successfully. So I could see a schema batch May2 has been created under the catalog, where it would be created under catalog. Just refresh this catalog, come down. See here, a schema has been created with the same name here, which is an empty folder. That's it. In this schema, I'm going to keep all my tables, replicated tables, which are available in my system. I'm going to replicate the tables. I'm going to replicate the table from my source system to HANA system. So let's say I am going to log on to this is a system here. This is SAP logon pad, where I will show you what is my source system, what are the tables available in this source system. This is my source system. Okay. So here I'll show you what is the table that is available here. I'm just looking for the MARA table in the source system. The source system here is SAP ECC system. The number of entries are available here is this much. If I see, the data would be used. So the data is available in my MARA table. Okay. Now I want to replicate this table. I want to replicate this MARA table, which is available in my source system, into the target system. Remember, the tables will not be automatically available in HANA. You need to replicate the tables first. The form of data provisioning techniques, like use either VODS or SLT to replicate the tables as well as the data into HANA. Once the data and tables are available, then the modeling will be starts. Then we will do modeling on top of the tables. To start the modeling, what is required? Tables are required as well as data is required. For that reason, I am discussing the data provisioning part first. So using VODS, now we are going to see how we would be replicating table from the source system to the HANA system. Yeah. So let's follow the steps one by one. So the first step is here. What is this? Create a data store for the source system. Create a data store for the source system. Before that, what you need to do is log on to SAP DS Designer first. First you need to log on to SAP DS Designer, Data Services Designer. There is a tool. There is a tool called Data Services Designer, which is in which we will be creating the jobs, creating a data stores, and creating the projects. So different things we would be creating in the Data Services Designer. Mainly we would be creating the job by job to replicate the tables from the source system to the HANA system. What is the tool here we are going to use? It's a DS Designer or Data Services Designer. Now go to Start menu. Here go to All Programs. Once you go All Programs, you will see Business Objects Data Services 4.1. Click on it, under which you will see a tool called Data Services Designer. So click on it. So I am logging on to a tool called Data Services Designer. So this is the tool. If you need to log on to this, the details should be required. So I am providing the details to log on to this tool. So when you are logging on, I'm showing you once again. Open the Data Services Designer, provide the system name or host name along with the port number to log on to this server. So you are trying to connect to the BODS server actually. You are trying to connect to the BODS server. So what is the username and password to connect to the server you need to provide. If you see, once as soon as you click on log on, it will ask you which repository that you want to connect. Within the server, within the BODS server, a repository has been created for the specific purpose or specific project or specific uses in the real time. So you need to select the appropriate repository over here. So I'm selecting the repository. My username is HANA. There is a repository has been created for a user called HANA. So I'm selecting the same one. Click on OK. If it asks this message, click on continue. Now I'm logging on to Business Objects Data Services Designer Tool, SAP BODS. Now I have logged on to the Data Services Designer Tool. This is not HANA Studio. This is Business Objects Data Services Designer Tool. So here, if you observe on the left side on top, you have a project area where we would be creating the projects for a specific purpose to load the data into the particular system. Let's say I am loading the data to some BW system using BODS. So I will create a project called BODS BW. I am loading the data to the HANA system, HANA database. I will create a project called BODS HANA. Similarly, I am going to load the data to some XYZ system. Now I will create a project called BODS underscore XYZ. So projects are related to a particular data load. So you can create as many projects over here depending on the requirement. Now, if you come down here, there are so many tabs are available: projects tabs, jobs, workflow, data flow, transformations, data store, formats, and custom functions. Now, if you observe here, this is a local repository. Sorry, it is a repository called HANA. So you remember when I was logging on to HANA, when I was logging on to BODS, when I was logging on to the BODS, what I was selected the repository as? I selected the repository as HANA. So that's why I'm already into the HANA repository. Repository is nothing but it's a namespace, it's a memory space allocated to my user ID. It's a memory space allocated to my user ID. Okay, simple way. So here HANA is a user as well as a repository name here. All the objects of this are allocated to created by me, created by my user, that is HANA user. So we will discuss one by one these tabs, what are these tabs and what it contains. So for the time being, so what is my first step here? Create a data store for the source system. So what I'm going to create here, I'm going to create a data store for the source system. So why should I create a data store for the source system? Because my BODS doesn't know what is the source system and what are the details of the source system. If you want the data from that source system, first the connection has to be established between your source and the BODS system. How would I do that? I can create a data store by providing the details of my source system. Let's go here. If you see, there are so many tabs are available here, out of which there is a tab called data store. There is a tab called here data store. Click on this tab. In this tab, we are going to create a data store for the source system as well as the target system. Okay. Now right click on this area. Right click on this area. There is something called new. Click on new. So what I'm going to create is a data store for source ECC. So I'm creating a data store. The name I'm providing here is ds underscore source underscore ECC. Now, what is the type of source? The type of data store type is SAP applications, because I am connecting to the source system, which is a server, which is a SAP related server, that is SAP application server. So that's the reason why I'm selecting the data store type as SAP applications. Now, how would you know what is the database server name, username and password? These details you need to have to connect to the source system. So just observe very carefully. In the logon pad, I'm trying to connect to this system. I'm trying to connect to the ECC system, ECC EHP6 system. So the details of this ECC EHP6 can be available. We can get these details by right click on this, go to properties of this. Here you will see what is the application server and what is the instance number and the system ID. So we need main these details. So how I get these details? Just right click on the system, go to the properties of the system. These are my details because they already added the system in the logon product. So select the appropriate application server here. So database server name is ECC EHP6. Now, what is the username and password that you need to provide here? Now, as soon as you provide these details, it is not enough. So go to advanced part of this. If you go to the advanced part of this, then come down here. There is something called client number and system number. These two details are also very important. When you are connecting to SAP system, SAP source system, make sure that you provided the client number and system number correctly. So what is my client number and what is my system number? How to identify that? The instance number is clearly specified here, that is 71. That is nothing but your system number. So I am providing 71 as my system number. Then how would I know the client number? How would I know the client number? So very simple. So you just need to double click on this system. So what is the client which is already exist here? 800. So the client number is 800 and the system number is 71. Now what I have done here is I'm creating a data store for the source system. I'm creating a data store for the source system for which I'm providing the details related to my source system. What are the details related to the source system here? Here, if it is any kind of system in the real time, you would be provided with the details. You don't need to worry about that. But here, since we are actually, it's not a real-time project, so to get the details of this, in a shortcut way, I'm just looking here. If it is a non-SAP system, you need to check with your respective data administrator to provide these details. Simple. So that way you can get it, because you don't know what is the server ID, what is the IP address or instance number of that particular system. The best way to get this information is get the data from your respective administrator. So he will be providing that. Okay, as soon as you provide this information, click on apply. I just clicked on apply and OK. If there are any errors are there, it will throw error. See, if you see ds underscore source underscore ECC has been created over here. Let me delete this. Again, I will show you how to create. I'm just showing you once again. Just observe very carefully. Right click on this data store area. Make sure that you are in the data store tab. Right click on this area, click on new, give the respective data store name, and what is the source system type, select that, and provide the server name, provide the username and password. Go to advanced part of it, come down, drill down. Here you will see the client number and system number. So what was our system number? It was 71. Imagine by mistake I specified as 70. So by mistake the system number I specified as 70. So when I click on apply, it will not accept because the number, the system with the instance number 70 is not available at all. If you observe here, it is connecting to a server called 192.168.1.10 colon 3370. 3370 is a port number which is not available, which is not reachable. So for that reason, you should provide the correct details. Then only the system would be reached out. Now click on apply. Make sure all the details are specified correctly. If you are not specifying the correct details, you will get the error as shown. Now if you observe, a data store has been created. So nothing I've done. I just created a data store, which is again an empty thing, empty namespace within my namespace. Within my repository, within the repository HANA, within the HANA repository, that is the repository name, don't confuse. HANA repository is something different. Here, my repository name within this BODS is HANA. So within this repository, I have created a data store called ds underscore source underscore ECC. Right? Now, what is my next step here? Replicate metadata from the source system. Now I want to replicate this Mara table. There is a table called Mara table. I want to replicate this data, this table into a target system. Now, before you replicate this to target system, what is the main thing you need to do here is you need to replicate the metadata, that is nothing but structure of the table into your BODS. You need to replicate the metadata of your particular table into BODS. You need to replicate that first. So let's see how to replicate the metadata of my table. So this is my source system data store I created. A connection has been established. Now my BODS system knows that what is the source system and what are the details of my source system. Yeah. Just right click on this. Just right click on this. There is an option called import by name. Import by name. So click on that. So whether what kind of source you are looking for, whether table or function or IDOC or extractor or hierarchy, it is a table that I want to replicate to the target system. What table I want to replicate? There is a table called Mara table. So I am selecting the Mara table. Click on import. Now if you come here and drill down this, expand this data store, under the tables, you will see a metadata information of Mara table. So the Mara table was available in my source system. Now the metadata of this Mara table, I replicate it to the BODS. Only the metadata. Now if you see, this contains, double click on this, this contains the information about this table. What are the different fields available in this table and what is the data type and description of this table. This is nothing but a metadata information. This is nothing but a metadata information. So that is very, very important. When you are replicating metadata, make sure that it is replicated correctly. So I am very sure that these fields are correct, so that my task is done to replicate the metadata into the source system. Sorry, BODS system. Now, if you observe, what is the next step? Create a data store for the target system. So similarly, I am going to create a data store similar to my source system data store. I am going to create a data store for the target system because my BODS system doesn't know what is the target system. So that I need to make BODS knows that what is my target system details. Just right click again on this area, click on new. I'm creating now a DS for data store for the target system. DS underscore target underscore HANA. Now, what is the data store type this time? The target system is HANA. HANA is a database, right? So select the data store type as database. Select the data store type as database. And the database type, if you observe, these are the supported databases out of which my database is SAP HANA. Select it. And the database version is 1.x. Here, database server name you need to provide, the port number you need to provide, the username and password. You don't need to provide any advanced details here because we don't have any client information. Our instance number is already provided here in the form of port number. 30015 is nothing but in the middle you have 00 is nothing but your port number. Sorry, instance number. The port number would be created in this way. 3xx15. Here xx is nothing but your instance number. So what I have done, I created a data store by providing the target system details. Click on apply and OK. Now a data store has been created for the source system as well as a target system. So ds underscore target underscore HANA is a data store for the target system, and ds underscore source underscore ECC is my data store for the source system. Okay. What is the next step? Replicate a metadata from the target system. So what table we are trying to replicate? Mara table. Is Mara table is already available in my target system? No, not yet. Because very first time I am replicating this table into a target system. When you are replicating it for the very first time, this table itself is not available in my target system, then how can I replicate the metadata from target system into the VODS? No, it is because the table itself is not available. I need to replicate this table first into HANA. For that reason, this is optional, which is for the very first time when you are replicating, for the very first time when you are replicating, this is an optional step. Remember. Next, create a project. Create a project. Right click on this area, or there is an option called here new. Click on here new. Now I'm creating a project called batch me. Create. Okay, I just created a folder called a project called batch me. Now under this project, what I'm going to do here is create a batch. From here, the main steps will come. So right click on this area, right click on this project. There is an option called new batch. Click on new batch. Give the badge job name as something called I'm replicating the badge job for Mara table. Let's say it is for the Mara table. Okay. Now I just created a batch job. Nothing great I have done. So now double click on this batch job. Double click on this batch job. Once you double click on this, and there is a workspace over here. Under this workspace, you need to define your job. You need to define your process flow. You need to define your process flow. So first, you need to drag and drop this workflow towards your work area. So I just drag and drop the workflow for Mara. Okay. Now double click on this workflow again. Under this workflow, you need to specify what is your data flow. So this is the data flow for Mara. Double click on this data flow again. This is a simple data flow, no complexity here. First I created one batch job. Under the batch job I created the workflow. Under the workflow I created the data flow. Now if you observe here, this is what we have done. Create a workflow within the batch job, create a data flow within the workflow, and after creation of this, what is the next step here? Specify the source and target in the data flow. So what is my source? What is the source? The source is a table, that is Mara table, which is already replicated here. Just now we replicated, right? So you need to drag and drop this Mara towards this work area. We are under the data flow now. We are under the data flow now. So I drag and drop toward this work area. This is my source table. Now the question here is, what is my target? What is my target? The target is a table which would be created in the HANA, because this table itself is not available yet in HANA. So for that reason, we would be taking a concept called here the template table. The right side tools palette, you will find an icon called template table. Just select this and drag and drop towards this work area. Now once you drag and drop toward this area, it will ask what is the table name that you want to create in the target system, that is HANA system. So what is the table name that I want to create here is, say, Mara. I want to create Mara table. So what is the data store that we created for the target system that you need to specify here? It was ds underscore target underscore HANA. Select this. Here this is very important. What is the owner name? Owner name is nothing but, remember, owner name is nothing but your schema name. Owner name is nothing but your schema name. This is very important. What is my schema name? What schema I just created in here? What was our schema name here? Batch me, in which you don't see any table so far because there are no tables are available here. This is my schema name. So here I need to specify my schema name. So the table name I specified, the same name would be, with the same name a table would be created in the target system. So to connect to the target system, I need target system details. How would I know? By using this data store, which we already created. Now, where should this table would be created? Under this particular schema. Click on OK. Now, I want to connect these two tables. Just connect these two tables. So this is my source and this is my target. So target, with the target, a table would be created with the name called Mara with all the fields available in the actual Mara table. Okay, I just created a job, batch job with a source as Mara table which is available in the source system, with the target as a new Mara table which would be created in my target system. Now as soon as you complete this, just save this batch job. I just save this batch job, and then once you save this batch job, So I'm just showing you here, there is no table in the target system. In the HANA database, under the batch me schema, we don't have any table so far, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to execute this batch job. Right click on this batch job and click on execute. Click on yes. So it is showing you what happening in the background. Yeah. So if you see a message has been completed successfully. Now go back to the HANA Studio, refresh this once, you will see a table called Mara. So because I replicated this table from the source system to the target system using BODS, I executed the job. Before that, I created the job. Within the job, I specified what is my source, what is my target. The target table I specified as Mara, so it has been created. Else you wanted to check whether the data is available in this table or not, whether the data is replicated or not. Just right click on this table, there is an option called Open Data Preview. Click on Open Data Preview, so you would see the data also. It means I replicated the table as well as I replicated the data. So using BODS, we replicated one table called Mara table, for which first we created the data store for the source system and the data store for the target system, and then we replicated the required table, required metadata information for the source system, and then we created a job to create a table in the target system. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow the similar steps for loading some other table. Let's say before that I'm going to show you another table called I'm showing you some other table. The table name is MAKT. There are a number of entries are available here. Now if you see, the data is available in this table. This is my source system. Within this source system I have a data. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate MAKT table metadata first into the DS. Right click, import by name. Again the same steps I'm following. So what is my table this time? MAKT. Click on import. Now if you see, a metadata of MAKT has been imported. It's a metadata. Double click on this, you will see the same metadata information. Total 5 fields are here. The source system, you will see how many fields are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns are there. So the same number of columns are imported. Now what next? I need to create a batch. Right click, new batch job. This time the batch job is for MAKT. Double click on this batch job. Here in the work area, first you need to drag your workflow. This time this is workflow for MAKT. Within the workflow, I am taking the data flow for MAKT again. So here within the data flow, I need to specify my source and target. What is my source this time? It's a MAKT. What is the target? The MAKT table itself is not available. For the very first time I'm loading, is there is any MAKT table is available here? No. So what I will do, I will take the help of this template table. So the table name it will create in the target system as MAKT. So I'm just specifying the name as MAKT. You can give any name. So what was the data store we already created earlier? The same data store I am using. So owner name is nothing but what? It's your target schema name. So what is my target schema name? Batch. Click on OK. Now map these two. Save it. Save the job. I just save the job and the right click on this job. As soon as your job has been saved, so I'm just showing you there is no MAKT table here. Now I'm going to execute this job in the BODS environment. It is executing the job. So as soon as the job has been completed, as soon as the job completes, a table with a name MAKT should be created in my target system. So completely successful, completed successfully. So go back here, right click and refresh once. See, there is a table called MAKT table has been created in my target system. So right click, open data preview, and data is available. So here Mara table is the material table, MAKT is the material description table in the SAP systems. Similarly, we can see how to load the data from the non-SAP systems also. That we will see tomorrow. So any queries here now? So far we have seen how to replicate the data from the SAP source system. From the SAP source system. Now we are going to, in the next class we would be seeing how to replicate the data from the non-SAP source system as well as how to replicate the data from the flat files using DOTS. So any queries?
Krishna?
Yes.
Krishna, say if a database has like a number of tables, so we follow the same procedure. I mean, do we go one after one for all the tables?
Yeah.
Or is there a way?
No, it's not like that. One job can be used for replicating many tables. That tomorrow I'll show you. Because today is just introduction class, that's why I started off with a simple data flow. So tomorrow I'll explain you how to replicate both the tables, Mara as well as MAKT, with a single job.
Okay. And also the recording sessions, if you can you able to send them on a daily basis, please?
I'm sending on a daily basis only. Immediately I send the data. You please check with them. I already sent on immediately after the class itself. I sent it.
So you're sending to the tutor,
Yes.
the institute guy.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So any queries?
So, Krishna, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, just like you selected two tables, Mara and MAKT from the SAP source systems. So we'll be given these details like different tables that we need to provision data from. All the information will be given to us by the provisioning team.
Yeah, first of all, it all depends on the project, like whether you are the responsible to replicate this. If you are responsible, yes, they would be giving the list of tables that involved in the modeling part. So only those tables would be replicated. So clearly in the FS, we call it as functional specification document. So in the FSD, they will be giving you a list of tables that are required to develop the modeling in HANA. That is what your question?
Yes.
Any queries from Satish? Okay, so if there are no queries, we will find off and tomorrow we'll meet at same time. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.